Let me see if I can pull up this whole clump right here and show you. You can see right there, some bulbs are bigger than others, but man, we've got a ton of them right there. What's up, Lazy Dog fam? Hope all y'all are having an awesome day. It is Saturday, June 15th here in South Georgia, and our Louisiana Evergreen shallots here behind me are finally ready to harvest. We got some nice little bulbs here, so we're going to kind of walk you through our journey back when we planted these, and then what we've done with them since, and then how we harvest them, what we do with the bulbs, how we dry those out, how we use them, and also going to give you a little update on our taters, some that we've harvested recently and some that we've still got in the ground. So here's our little 30-foot row of Louisiana Evergreen shallots, along with a little bit of pigweed there. And these things have been in the ground a long time. So late last summer, a lot of you purchased bulbs for these Louisiana Evergreen shallots on our website, and we should have more available later this summer. And we've been kind of trying to walk you through this long journey of growing these things, from planting them last summer, how you can split them up and divide them, and then now today, how you can harvest these little bulbs. Now, you've probably heard me call these perennial onions a lot, which in my mind they are perennial onions because you can just leave them in the ground and they'll just keep growing and growing and growing. But the actual name is Louisiana Evergreen shallot, and that's because when it gets hot this time of year, the base of those onions start to swell up, make a little bulb here, which is a shallot. Now, before we harvest these and talk about how you cure and use these little shallot bulbs, let's kind of go back and talk about the journey these plants have been on. So late last summer, we planted a bunch of those bulbs in this raised bed right here where we have all these beautiful pepper plants right now. Planted a couple rows of them in there, and they got up and going pretty dang fast. So once those sprouted and started growing well, they started multiplying pretty soon after that, and we went from one bulb to about 7 or 8 little onion plants per clump. And so you can see here with some of those how that works. They just keep multiplying and multiplying and multiplying. And as those plants multiply, at any time, you can pull up one of those big clumps, split apart the individual plants, and replant those. And then those you replant will, once again, multiply. These things just grow and grow and grow. What happened in that raised bed, though, is we divided some, replanted some, but it got so thick in there, it was staying too moist. There really wasn't enough room for those plants to breathe. That's when we moved them over here to this in-ground plot. So they did a lot better for us when we moved them to this in-ground plot. They had a little more room to do what they needed to do. And then about mid to late spring, we talked about what you should do when you start seeing flower heads on these. Now keep in mind here, as I showed you throughout the growth cycle, at any point in time, you can use these green onion tops on these Louisiana Evergreen shallots. So anytime you need some green onion tops, just go out there, cut them off the plants. Not going to hurt the plants at all. They'll grow right back. But anyways, when these things do start flowering in the spring, as I told you back then, you just basically cut off the flower heads here and they will continue to grow. So don't worry about seeing those seed heads there. Just cut them off as they appear. Keep watering those plants, keep them happy. And on that video, when we were talking about removing the flower heads, I also showed you how you could pull up an entire plant here, use almost the entire plant, but still have something left to replant. So let's assume this little bulb right here isn't there. I showed you how you could pull up one of these and then cut it right here down at the base, just leaving a little nub there, and you could replant that nub and it would generate another shallot plant. So we showed that on that video and it worked well for us. So you can harvest these anytime you want throughout the growth cycle. Use the green tops, even use the bottoms. These things just keep giving and giving and giving as they keep growing. But once the summer heat sets in, after these things have flowered, that's when the bulbs down here at the base of all these little onion plants will start to enlarge. So let me see if I can pull up this whole clump right here and show you. You can see right there, some bulbs are bigger than others, but man, we've got a ton of them right there. Also keep in mind, all of this was started with just one single bulb like that, and now we've got, I don't know, probably 30 or more right here just in this one clump. Now it's important to note here, you don't have to pull these up. You can leave them right where they are, grow them just like a perennial. They'll keep dividing and multiplying. But if you want to enjoy some of these delicious shallots here, and maybe you want to move them somewhere where they can expand even further, or you want to share some of these with friends, you want to pull them up, split them apart, dry them out a little bit. So let's use this little piece off that big plant for example here. We're just going to pull apart these individual pieces. Got some pretty nice sized bulbs on there. That one's a little small. Just going to pull apart all those right there. Then I'll take some scissors or my knife and just kind of cut off the rest of that plant there. May leave a little bit there, but I'm going to cut off a majority of that, probably so it looks something like that right there. Now when you pull these up, you may also notice that some of those little bulbs have already sprouted into a new healthy looking plant. You could replant that if you want to, or what I'm going to do is just pluck them off, cut them right there just like we did the other ones, let this dry a little bit, and then I'll eventually replant it later this summer. So lots of different possibilities. You don't have to pull them up, but you can pull them up. These shallots here are really tasty. You can use them in a lot of different cooking applications, and you get a ton of shallots from just one plant. So here you can see some that I pulled from a plant a few days ago. These have just been sitting in this crate underneath my barn, drying for a few days. You can see how they kind of cure out there, what they look like. So we could use these for cooking, or we could just save these to replant in another month or two. So you want to store these much like you would big onions or maybe even garlic. You want to keep them in a nice shaded, relatively cool place. Underneath my barn works fine for me, and ventilation is very important. That's why those crates work so well, because they've got holes all in them, got good ventilation there. You wouldn't want to just stuff these away in a box where they could get wet or start molding on you. So later today I'm going to pull the rest of these, clip the tops off of them, put them in one of those crates underneath the barn so they can dry. We'll enjoy many of them in meals going forward. We'll also replant a decent amount of them, and we'll also have some available on our website in another month or two for those of you who missed out on them last year. And lastly, as promised, a little update on some taters we've harvested recently and these here that are still growing. So about a week ago today, last Saturday, we got back from a little beach trip, say mid-afternoon. It was ridiculously hot outside, but I had some taters that needed to be dug. So we waited about 8:30, about 30 minutes before dark. The boys got out here and knocked out that 30-foot row of Baltic Rose taters in no time, and we ended up doing pretty good. Now for that particular row, we let those plants die all the way back to the ground. They were just as crispy as they could be, pretty much nothing left of the plant. And if you do that, you will maximize your yield. You can't always do that. If you're getting a lot of rain and the plants have started dying back, you probably want to dig your taters so they don't rot in the soil. But we've been relatively dry around here lately, so we let the plants die all the way back and got some really nice sized taters. So this is what they harvested off that 30-foot row. Both of these buckets were full earlier this week. We've eaten some of these and given some of these away. So, you know, I didn't weigh them, but we definitely hit our 10 times multiple, and leaving them in the ground a little longer definitely gave us some larger taters. And one of the comments or questions we commonly get about seed taters is people saying, hey, I've been growing red taters from the feed and seed store for years. I want to try one of these wood prairie varieties, but maybe it's not in the budget to try a bunch of them. If you could only try one of them, which one would you grow? And it would be this one right here, the Baltic Rose. This is my number one. This is an amazing tasting tater, pretty productive tater too, and I promise you, once you try these, it'll open your eyes to all the big world of different tater varieties out there, and you'll realize there's a lot better stuff to eat out there than just those plain old red taters. Nothing wrong with those red taters, but if you want to try just one of those wood prairie varieties, I would go with Baltic Rose. And then right here where we've got our little healing experiment going on, where half the row was healed and the other half wasn't healed. These Sharpo taters here, they look pretty rough, but some of them appear to have caught a second wind. So that plant there looks pretty rough, but it's put on some new growth right there that looks green and healthy. So these things right here, they just don't want to die back completely. Now we could just leave those and see what happens. I have been continuing to watered them last night in fact, but those taters have been in the ground coming up on 120 days, which is a long time for taters to be in the ground down here in South Georgia. It is a later maturing variety. It would be what they call an indeterminate variety for some of you up north where it doesn't get hot enough to kill tater plants. But since they've been in the ground 120 days, I think we're going to call it quits on our experiment pretty soon here. So maybe on one of the next couple videos, we'll dig these and compare that healed portion of the row to the non-healed portion and see if healing actually made a difference. But despite the upcoming results of that experiment, one thing I've learned, this Sharpo variety here is tough as horse meat. If you deal with a lot of potato diseases, blight and stuff like that, tends to take down your potato plants before you get to that normal, say 90 to 100 day maturity date. Highly recommend trying Sharpo. These plants are the toughest of any potato variety I have ever grown. Crazy that they're still kicking in our garden right now with it being over 95 degrees all this week. But soon we will see what kind of harvest we got. I think we got a pretty good harvest, at least on that healed portion of the row. Not really sure what we're going to see on that unhealed portion. So I hope you enjoyed the video today. Don't forget to stay tuned to when these Louisiana Evergreen shallots are available on our website again. And if you purchased some of these from us last year, please do share in the comments below how they did for you, how you're liking them so far. And if you want to see how we divide and replant these things as they grow, watch this video right here. We'll go all the way back to late last summer and show you that process, show you just how vigorous these Louisiana Evergreen shallots are. So check that out, and we'll see you next time right here at Lazy Dog Farm.